Sharing on the correct screen. Can y'all see my presentation? The little box is like not on the screen. It's freaking me out. Thanks. Cool. Okay, cool. All right, chat. Participants window. Got all my controls. Cool. Okay. All right, we'll probably get started in about like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. We'll give people enough time to wander in. I usually like start like 2 or 3 after the hour, kind of to let people pile in always and play, you know, bingo, like video card bingo or video call bingo. Can't think today.
Hey, Liz.
By the way, hello.
Hey,
I have a question. Were you able to speak to who? I think it was Victoria. Was it Morgan about the opportunity for tech fellows to be able to take part in the career fair?
Mm-hmm. Yes. She is. They're rolling out a special program for y'all, and I've seen a document. And I'm not supposed to say anything about it, but like they're working on it. Yeah, they
Okay.
have. So they're working on making it a real plan. So yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah. Did somebody else have a question before we?
Yes, Liz, Samina here. How are
Hey,
you?
Tamina. Pretty good. How are you?
Yeah, actually, there is some confusion about, I think probably you're going to address it today, but I just wanted to make sure that this is like, I have probably half information. What we're looking for is, you know, this whole thing about remote versus on campus or I mean, online kind of individual sessions. So some of the tech fellows were confused, like, because in the sign up form, it shows a list of universities and it also shows like a remote option. And then I also found out that for a cybersecurity, there'll be only one big, you know, everybody combined session, but everything else would be both options, individual and mixed. So that information, a lot of tech fellows have gotten mixed up. I mean, I've talked to a few of them, and it seems like everybody has a different version. So maybe we can align on that.
Yeah, we'll talk about it today. And yeah, it's a little confusing. Partly it's like we're trying to coordinate with all of the different universities, and like we're kind of there with some of them, and other ones they're not sure what they're doing, and then other one, you know. So I mean, that's partly why we're doing the remote run. Is I worry that some people will just have no opportunity to register otherwise, and you know, and a lot of people are remote, you know. So that's kind of why we batched it all. It's just to like, well, if like the deadline comes and we still don't know what's up with the specific university that the deadline is up for, just having people register for the remote is like our safety option. And then we can kind of like, oh, we are going to run a session, you know. So it kind of depends on like which thing. I'm looking now at the sheet. And we'll start in about 2 minutes. Everybody who's here, I usually like to give everybody a second to kind of you know, get in and stuff. So just answering some questions about the specifics. As far as I understand, San Jose State. Hold on, I'm looking.
So I do know, like, we are non-credit, but I know some are. There's another confusion there. So it's like a subcategory of the whole thing is a credit and non-credit option that's confusing. Yeah. And then we are right now, we want to divide up the sessions among the TFs, but nobody knows whether it'll be like individual session or a combined session. Will we be acting like mentors, or we will be teaching, or what's going on?
Yeah, that's a great
lot.
Thank
you.
Yeah. So yeah, just to address each one, with the remote sessions, we're going to give you a stable group of students. So you'll get some students, and then those will be the ones that you're sort of responsible for. And, you know, other than like on the third week, we kind of do a check-in. Is everybody still around? You know, whoever's dropped has dropped. And so then we sometimes combine groups, things like that. But in a general sense, you're going to get students, and then they're going to be your students. So it won't be like you're popping into just a bunch of random students all over the place. Generally, you'll be matched with students from your university, but like basically, if there's a really uneven distribution, we won't have one person do 12 and one person do 50, right? We'll try to split evenly and like help each other out. So that's generally the plan. For your individual university, some of it's going to be worked out with your guru, like what the actual plan is if you're not part of the big remote run. If you're non-credit, you're part of the big remote run. So what I have here at a high level, and I'll just sort of start by showing you this. These are the universities that we have tech fellows for. So for each university and for each course, right? So there's these 3 courses. Alabama A&M is 4 credit, for example, and we have 1 TF for Android and 1 TF for cybersecurity, right? So Monterey Bay is 4 credit. We don't have any TS, right? These folks down here in the non-credit group, right? CUNY, right? They are usually a gigantic site with a lot of people. So they might get a huge number of people, while San Jose, I mean, you're usually also a big site, but you know, imagine you aren't, right? And you have 3 tech fellows. Let's say you got 20 people here and then, you know, CUNY got 100, right? You would be helping out CUNY basically. So that's kind of how we're doing it. I mean, I think you would really more be like matched with Florida because you're in the same time zone. We'll try to be smart about this, but I'm just trying to paint a picture of like, it's a big moving program that's got a lot of moving pieces. So that's why when I say something and then I'm light on details, please ask a specific question because it's going to be a sort of specific to each university and each course, right? So yeah, does that make sense as to why everything's a little all over the place? Like this is how many colleges.
I have a question. What's the difference between for credit and non-credit?
So for credit is literally there is college credit. We're in the catalog at the university. You get to use this course as part of your degree. And that's because we've partnered with the school and we have a professor, and the professor is supervising the course and helps us out with the course and helps us find tech fellows and so on and so forth.
Oh, okay.
Non-credit is we haven't formed that partnership yet, but I mean, it's really useful stuff, so everyone wants to learn it anyway, so we just run it anyway and everybody gets to learn, you know, iOS or cybersecurity or whatever it is. So so yeah, that's what it is. So yeah, sorry, usually we don't open up with this and y'all don't even really see the spreadsheet most of the time. So yeah, it's a little different, but yeah, feel free to interrupt me anytime with any questions and I will be happy to dive into the details. This is week 2. Kyle has a question. I'm just going to read. It's told by Guru that SJSU will have a remote run. We may be asked to help with the general CodePath run with student pods as well. Yeah, basically like we don't know how many people are going to sign up. Everybody that's at your university will try to slot with your tech fellows. If you kind of run out of space, we'll have somebody else also help your university students. On the flip side of that, if your class doesn't fill completely up or your university like doesn't have, you know, 50 students and there's 1 tech fellow, right? And you have like 10 or something, we'll have you help another university that has too many students to handle basically. And we can only do this because it's the remote run. So that's part of the plan. And we talked a little bit about this last time. Let's see. I think we talked briefly about it up here somewhere. It just seems like it's now gone. Yeah. Well, anyway, yeah, basically the remote run is we're gonna help each other out. I did want to talk about kind of where we're gonna like the tooling and kind of where we are in training y'all in facilitator training. This is the 2nd week of the facilitator training. It's aimed at new tech fellows. If you're a returning tech fellow, you don't have to be here, though we're going to talk about teaching and the concept of teaching. So it's you know, a helpful overview if you'd like to stay. But yeah, if you're a new facilitator, please do stay. This is for you to help you learn about a lot of things. Today, we're going to talk about classroom dynamics. I'm going to talk with an eye to, sorry, hold on, let me turn on. I have do not disturb. Anyway. So I'm going to talk about a lot of classroom dynamics. I'll talk about it kind of being remote and with an eye towards people being remote, because I know even if your university is planning to come back, like we're not really doing that. So, you know, we're mostly going to be teaching over Zoom this semester. So because of that, we've added another week. Whoops, sorry. We've added another week to the training. I went ahead and I was going to try to cover it over the next 2 weeks, but it needs its own session. It's a lot of stuff. So I've kind of created another thing, and it's really, we're going to talk about Zoom, creating a good culture over Slack, crucial, remote facilitation, what's the difference, and then just like, how are we going to get the social experience to happen? So we're going to talk about that August 5th and 6th. Today, we're still going to talk about like classroom dynamics. What is it to teach? What is it to be a teacher? So that's what we're covering today. So yeah, feel free to ask any questions. Just to give me an overview, kind of a breakdown of what that really means. We're going to talk about our task tracker tasks. Hold on, I'm just going to make Slack shut the heck up for a second. There we go. Sorry, anyway, we're going to review task tracker tasks. I'm going to show you our leaderboards. You can see kind of who's signing up where and how many applications we have. Then we'll really dive into being a facilitator, what it is to teach. We'll talk about what is a typical session kind of like, what does it feel like, what is it like to run those sessions, and then we're gonna, and then we're gonna talk about groups. So yeah. So to just get started, you know, and dive right in, really the first thing we're going to do, and I can see people are kind of still filtering in, we're going to go ahead and jump into our task trackers. So I'm just going to drop the link to the specific slide in the Zoom group chat. So you should be able to open it, click on these task tracker links. Meanwhile, I have somehow lost access to these files. So I'm just going to copy and paste the links in, but you should all still have access. So that first spreadsheet is the cybersecurity task tracker. Here we go. Second link is the iOS task tracker. And the third link is the Android task tracker. So just go ahead and open those up. And it looks like I might be able to actually get into this one. Yay, okay. So just go through and make sure that there's each one of these items, you've either got some sort of, so you've got some sort of status in them. You know, I just want to make sure everybody has a few minutes to just go ahead and pop open the task tracker and update anything that you have done. There's a lot of task due dates, and so some of these things are in there. They're part of the marketing handbook. You know, there's some things about the different sessions that you're supposed to do, and you know, various things in here. So go ahead and just look through, make sure that you have actually marked whether or not you have done these task tracker tasks. That'll help us know, like, you know, whether to reach out if you need some help with anything. So.
Excuse me, Liz.
Hello.
Yeah, hi, this is Dr. Lengani. I have two of my students taking your this course. Mm-hmm. And Kendall just joined us. She just joined us today for the first time.
Oh, okay.
And yes, and you are talking about those links and those file here. I'm not sure if she have it. If she have access to there's a way to, because my go ahead.
Sorry, which university are you in?
Howard University, like your name.
Oh, great, awesome, yeah. And then which course is it?
It's the Android.
And the Android, okay. I think I don't have access to the file. Yeah. She just wants to review like the section that she's in, and just it's stuff like, has a classroom been booked, or if a classroom doesn't need to be booked, you know, have you got like a meeting time and date set up, things like that.
No, the question is from where are you reading? Where are you reading this the slide? Does she have access to the slide? I'm sorry.
She should, and yes, the slides are linked. I'll just drop one more time the link in the Zoom group chat. So if she just joined, the last link that I dropped in there is the link to these slides. She should get emails if our ops team has received her email and like has gone through the setup process. If she just got here like this week and her email hasn't made it through our system yet, just reach out to, or have her reach out to support@codepath.org. And, you know, we're kind of aware that people are like trickling in, and so we can catch her up.
Okay.
So, yeah, it takes a few days to get through the system. There's a lot of moving pieces to the whole thing. 58,000 spreadsheets. You don't have access to the task tracker. Yeah. So as long as the support team has your email, they'll get it. But if they haven't given you access yet, please do email support@codepath.org. And it just sort of gives them a to-do to, like, you know, make sure that you haven't fallen through some crack somewhere or haven't, you know, gotten the right email to the right place. So yeah, email support@codepath.org with a list of anything that you don't have access to. Awesome. Cool. Okay, so yeah, we're just going to take, you know, a few minutes and update this if you can get in. And then, yeah, if you don't have the access, go ahead and write that email real fast. Oh yeah. Yeah, if you haven't seen it, there's like this whole thing, and then yeah, there's like, you know, the homework, and this is for returning tech fellows, this is for you, so just updating all of this stuff. It's really key. There's also for the run itself, but this is like during the run, so you'll start doing this like right when you start your actual class. This is like pre-coursework, and then this is like during coursework. That's how we keep track. And then just when you get through updating and checking your task tracker, give me a thumbs up in the, if you click on the participants window, you should be able to see where it says like, you know, raise hand or something like that. Go ahead and just raise your hand when you're done, or click thumbs up. Either way is good. Just give me an idea of when most people are through it. And, you know, just get it to where it's true. Everything on it is true. You don't have to like start doing anything, you know, just note, oh, maybe there's a few things in there I need to take a look at. So. Jeez. Probably move on in just a second. The next thing I wanted to kind of show everyone, it's linked in the playbook, but these are our leaderboards. So here, I'll just have them pulled up. We've got various leaderboards, where you can kind of see how many students have applied to what universities. So if your university is for credit, it'll appear down here. Otherwise, everyone will just be in the remote batch. So right now we have 262 students in the remote batch that have applied for Android. Let's see. This was as of yesterday, 361. So now it's 397. Looks like we've got some decent velocity here. And then as of yesterday, cybersecurity was 85. Now it is 86. All right. So these are the leaderboards that kind of help you to, you know, if you're taking charge of marketing, it helps to see like where everyone else is, and, you know, you can compete a little bit. It's fun. And then, you know, for everybody who's working on the remote, thing, you can help by telling your friends, hey, you can take a CodePath course from anywhere, even if we're not on your university. So that's how you can help out. If you are not sure about marketing, you haven't started marketing, if you're a non-credit course, we are kind of marketing all together. You might want to come to one of these office hours. The next one's Thursday, 7:23. These are basically where our the head of university relations and the head of growth at CodePath will come and help you strategize around growth. This is meant to be not just helping you grow CodePath, it's also meant for you to help understand about growth strategies and how do growth strategies work, and how do growth strategies work at universities and campuses and online and things like that. So it's just supposed to be an applied, you know, communications strategy session. So if you're interested in being entrepreneurial and you ever want to look into growth ever, or even be kind of just aware of how growth works, jumping into these are going to be really helpful. And so, you know, use us as your lab. Try not to make us look bad, but like, you know, talk to these folks, and they're gonna help you with flyers, strategies, ways to showcase your school's class and everything. So check them out. It's gonna be cool. They're optional, so just, you know, you don't have to go, but I do recommend. It's a interesting set of challenges to understand. So yeah, let's talk a little bit more. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah, 4 credits should appear in the leaderboard, but you won't appear in the leaderboard until there's at least 25. Oh no, I'm so sorry. 4 credits should not appear in the leaderboard. It's usually only non-credit, but actually what I saw was all of our 4 credits in the leaderboard. So I'm not sure how the leaderboard is working this time around. We've never run this big of a remote thing, and so things may be configured differently than they normally are. So sorry if it's a little misleading. But yeah. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about being a facilitator. So the role that you're about to inhabit isn't something like Professor McGonagall at Hogwarts, right? We don't need you to show up and be some sort of like genius, like potions divination expert. You don't need to write, you know, complicated formula on the chalkboard and like frighten the students, right? And that's really critical, because a lot of times people, they go through their college career and they only encounter this professor. And it's hard to talk to this professor and tell this professor that you don't understand, right? But, you know, we kind of have this situation a little bit, right? You kind of have this guy just suddenly dropped into a classroom where he doesn't really know what's happening. We don't mean to sort of throw you into the role of professor and ask you to be, you know, a wizard, right? What we want you to do is be a facilitator. What we want you to do is, you know, think back to that student. You know, you've been in that class where there was that one student who kind of barely needed to take the class, and they already knew everything in the class, and like you would not have passed the class without that one student's help, right? We want you to be that student, the student that kind of helps everyone pass the class, right? we've recognized that that student is often the difference between passing and failing a computer science class. And so rather than have this professor stand up and be scary and write, magic on the board that no one can understand, we just have y'all show up and be approachable and show people how to do the lab by doing the lab and demonstrating it. And then, sending them off with the assignment and giving them whatever help they need so that they get done with the work. It's the difference between just, learn or fail, and we're here to really help. So, just to kind of give you that delta, let's take a minute and let's actually just in the Zoom chat, I want you to write your answers in the Zoom chat. What's unique about the role of a professor versus what's unique about the role of a facilitator? What's the difference between these two roles? Just take 2 minutes, think about it, write it down. All right, getting a lot of, answers along the same lines. For facilitators, it seems like accessibility, they can share more of their experience taking the course. The facilitators support, help, connection to resources. You can talk to them more freely about issues with projects. They help move things along. They create an environment where students feel welcomed and are a resource. Facilitators take what they've learned from being taught and make it easier to understand to their peers, to make it less intimidating. We've got facilitators are there to help students if they had issues, be able to communicate better with them because it's peer-to-peer. Professor teaches the material while a facilitator helps make sure students understand it. So yeah, these are pretty great. Details. It sounds like y'all heard what I was trying to say, right? So yeah, so that's a pretty good summary of like the difference between a professor and a facilitator. I would say, the big thing y'all hit on, what is a professor? Professor's like the subject matter expert. Maybe the professor, built an app or built an algorithm or invented something or just has a lot of it, real experience with something. while the facilitator's like still a student and still recently a student. They just get it and they understand it and they're ready, and they understand it at a deep enough level that they can improve the understanding of others. So yeah, that's a great overview. So let's talk a little bit about being in the classroom, right? We've kind of distinguished the difference between a professor who just knows and lectures and is talking about things, and their job is almost to be a video, right? Or a performer, whereas the facilitator is really more student-centric, culture-centric, environment-centric. And so your job is to make sure that everybody's passing the class, right? We want people to pass. We don't want them to fail. That's not the goal. We're not trying to weed anyone out or you know, help figure out who's actually got the stuff. We're trying to make sure that everybody who wants to learn can learn. So it's sort of a different idea sometimes than every, you know, than the cultural environment in every classroom you've been to. I want you to think about other classrooms you've been in. What is a good classroom that you really learned a lot in, that you liked, versus a class that was hard to get through and you feel like you only got through because of your own tenacity? You know, we really want that first class experience. We don't want you to barely make it because you just, you know, beat your head against the wall enough times to do it. So in order to really think about that, let's just take a minute, and what I want you to do is put your answers in the Zoom chat. Just say do or don't. And I'm going to say these things and then you say do or don't, basically. So, should we gather feedback during class? All right, everybody's saying do. Everybody's saying do. And yeah, you should definitely gather feedback during class. And feedback's more than one piece of information, right? I cannot see most of you. There's one person who has their video on. Thanks, Giancarlo. But, you know, like there's real talk. People are tired of Zooms. They have Zoom fatigue. You can't see their faces. So you've got to have a way to know if they're all paying attention. The people who I know for sure are paying attention are all the people who said do in the chat, right? So that feedback process is more than just, hey, are y'all doing good? Does anyone have any questions? It's also things like that show you that people are still paying attention. All right, should we always stick to our plan no matter what? Do or don't? Pretty uniform don't. That's correct. You know, be flexible. Obviously, we didn't stick to the plan last semester, so we've got to be pretty flexible, especially this semester. We don't know what's going to happen. It's only halfway through 2020. Should you, you know, have an authoritative presence? Maybe a little bit, you know, I mean, you know, it would be totally, totally loosey-goosey all the time. But as you might have noticed with me, I try not to be super formal and stilted and talk to you about what you'll be doing. You know, I try to be a little loose, a little human, right? And that helps a lot. So yeah, try to be a person. You're just like, the camera's only a foot away from you, right? And that's what it feels like when people are looking at you teach or facilitate. Yeah, just try to stick to being a human. Should you build a personal rapport with students? I get back and forth on this answer sometimes. I always like to see, what do you actually think? Should you, or should you not? So I always like to see like what do people really think. So, you know, we try at CodePath not to give one person 50 people. You know, we try to have 2 tech fellows for any of the larger cohorts. And that's because human attention does not scale. I cannot, you know, if you had a class of 25, that maybe doesn't seem like that big of a class, but do you honestly talk to 25 people on a regular basis? Can you name 25 people that you literally talk to regularly? Yes or no? Say yes or no in the chat. Many of you talk to 25 people, and not even one person talks to 25 people regular. So 25 people is a lot, right? You're gonna have to get to know some of the students. You will not be able to get to know all of the students. And I'll show you how to scale that attention. But part of the reason why we need to have student teachers is because if it was just the founders of CodePath, like we would just be doing video and no one would ever get to talk to us. The personal rapport is how you find out what's going on in their lives. What do they want to do? How can you empower them? How can you highlight other opportunities for them to study or do hackathons or do other stuff? That's the lifeblood of CodePath, really, is your relationships with the students and our relationships with you. So personal rapport is, I think, very important because we're not, you know, y'all are not children, right? We don't have to have this weird wall of adult relationship there. And you're not professors. You don't have some grand power over these people and whether or not they'll make it, right? You're really more of a team, a cohort that's graduating together that you are the leader of. So build personal rapport for sure. What about extended silences? Do or don't? I just did an extended silence. So silence feels bad. Silence feels bad when you're presenting because it feels like you dropped a line or you dropped a cue. It feels like a bad performance. People need silence and time to absorb what you said. When you explain some complicated technical idea, think about how long it takes you to build a mental picture of that thing happening in your head. 5 seconds, 1 second. So there's this idea of wait time, and we've got some good questions in there. How do you know when to take a pause? When there's a lot of text, when there's a new idea, when you say a lot of things, or when you build a big picture in your head where someone has to think about it. Anything where you want them to go, that's where you need silences. It's hard, especially when you've got all that attention on you. You can just see the seconds like crawling by and they take an eternity to tick by. But anytime where you ask a question or if you dump a lot of information on people, if you don't give them at least 15 seconds to realize that they might have a question, you're going to go, does anyone have questions? Cool, let's move on. And nobody has a chance to check in with themselves and go, did I really pick that up? What is a UI table view for again? I don't, you know, like that moment takes a few seconds. Extended silences are fine. By extended, I mean less than 5 or 10 minutes is not too long. When you do exercises, those are extended silences in a lot of cases. So they're fine. You're not dropping the beat because you're conveying information and people are doing active modeling in their head. We'll talk a little bit about wait time in a little bit. So do or don't, discuss things at an advanced technical level. Sometimes here and there. Yeah, see, and so that extended silence that we did, like if I had just said, okay, the first 5 people said don't. And so if I had just moved on, I wouldn't have seen Anand say yes. I wouldn't have seen Puya say no, but if the concepts demand, you'll have to. I wouldn't have seen Bara say sometimes or Andre say here and there, because it takes a minute to recognize the nuance in those two ideas. A lot of times you don't want to get into too much technical details in the presentation. What you want to do is wait until students come to you at the end of the presentation, after you've opened breakout rooms, to dive into rabbit holes with people. Don't dive into rabbit holes during the lecture. Should you use class time as quiet study time? Do or don't? Okay, so most people are saying don't. There is the lab portion that you could think of that as quiet study time, but it's not study time. It's everybody work on the lab time. The thing about class time is we're asking everyone to be at a specific place at a specific time, or be online at a specific time. And that's rare. There's not infinity amount of that in a week. So use it for something that matters that we get together and do. Should we use most of the scheduled class time for the presentation? No. Yeah. So we've kind of talked a little bit more about this. What about giving more time for group work than presenting material? Do or don't? Okay, so this kind of gives me a baseline of where y'all are at in the understanding of how we do this stuff. And I'm gonna discuss the difference, like what you should do with the schedule, in just a second. Last thing, people are usually split on this, but I'll just tell you the answers. Do allow students to share their solutions. We want you to pass. Don't allow them to copy and paste each other's work. Don't allow them to share flags if you're talking about the cybersecurity class. But if it's, I'm getting this error, oh yeah, I've gotten that, do it this, like let them help each other. We should definitely foster team environments. So yeah. So what I was doing there, the point of that exercise is that I was checking for understanding. That whole experience that you just had was far more compelling than me just talking, right? The idea that we were getting into there is that if I just told you these things, if I just said, always do this, never, don't stick to your plan, don't have an authority. If I just told you the answers, you would not remember them. And I would not know if you were paying attention or if you even understood what I was talking about. So I would have had no feedback had I just had a slide for each one of these points. You're not a video, this is a meeting. Y'all are all on with me physically right now. You're in the same room listening, and we're all paying attention together at the same time. So try not to be a video because that's not fun to go through. But the discussion that we just had is far, far more compelling. Something that you have to take into account whenever you're talking about your student, or whenever you're thinking about the presentation, is that students are asking themselves this question: why am I here right now? It is the #1 question on their minds. Do I need to be here for this? Could I leave and just watch the recording? How many of you are asking yourselves or have asked yourselves that before you got into this presentation? Did you ask yourself if you could just skip it and watch the video? Probably several of you looked at the Slack to see if there was a video from yesterday already up, right? So you're asking yourselves this, your students are asking themselves this as well. It's probably not always clear to students what they're doing today. Tell them in advance, but help them to understand that, it is worth coming in for. You have to kind of tell the story of what it is that we're learning today and why are we learning it together? Why are we practicing it together? Why didn't you just send me the docs and tell me, you know, to do it, right? Some people like to see the thing done first, and they like to be in the room where they can ask questions, but many students are asking themselves these questions, right? And this is the biggest question: when are we actually going to do stuff? They don't come to listen to us talk. They come to have a exercise that's well designed and up to date that they can get help with. They come here to hack, right? So they're asking themselves this. You were asking yourself this, like, you're asking yourself this right now while I'm like just talking, right? As soon as you've got text on a slide and somebody's just talking and talking, you're wondering, okay, when am I going to get to actually do the thing, right? The first half of this was mostly us talking and you doing something, and it kept you very engaged. Everyone's super engaged, but the longer I talk, the more I'm losing you. Somebody has picked up their phone. Somebody is also eating and like just kind of hearing something going on downstairs. Like, I'm losing people, just every word I say. So be aware of that while you're presenting. You know, the question is, which is more memorable, a snippet of text or a discussion? What do y'all think? Snippet of text, discussion? Yeah. And you can go back to a snippet of text, but you don't remember it the way that you remember this discussion. Another question, a good question, is how do you know when it's time to participate versus just listening? How do you know when it's time to like kind of lean back and watch me talk versus actually doing something? Write that in the Zoom chat. How do you as a student know when it's time to participate? Okay, that's a good one. Perception and teaching methodology of the instructor. Yeah, I've seen those teachers. Sometimes they'll go, you know, a triangle has how many sides, and they just expect somebody to go 3, you know, and so you kind of get trained into whatever the classroom signals are. Yeah, when the facilitator engages in conversation with the students, right? There's other cues. Anyone else see other cues? How do you know as a student it's time to do something versus like it's just presentation time? Teacher asks you to try to implement the topic. Certain cues in the teacher's voice. How do you know when it's time to participate versus just listening? You know, I'm kind of like, just listening. Or I don't know, I did it weird, but like, you know, it's kind of in your voice. Yeah. There's verbal cues. Silence is another big one. The fact that I just waited for y'all to type, big cue there. Also, it says it right here on the screen. And then I like wiggled my mouse under it, right? So just a lot of cues. It takes a lot of cues. If I had just kept talking, wouldn't have gotten probably half the answers I got. So yeah, I mean, more silence means more people will be prompted to respond. And then yeah, being really clear on the Zoom chat that students are engaged when they're active, not when they're passive. They're passive, they're just getting the idea that these things, you know, that they're of what they're gonna learn when they do finally start paying attention. But when you're asking people to answer a question, they're thinking through it. So that's how you really keep people engaged. We're running a little low on time, so I might go a little fast. I'm going to talk fast, basically. So there's a number of problems that you get in the classroom. you know, Puya brought up, like, when the class is getting distracted or losing, you know, you're losing control of the class, but it's very hard for you to see that when you're teaching remotely, right? So there's kind of 4 main problems. You got disengaged students, as in they're not responding to what you're asking them to do, or they're not turning things in. Biggest technique you can do is post whatever it is they're supposed to be doing at the time. So I did this when I wrote 90 seconds, right answers in Zoom chat, and I put the question on the slide. That's what I mean by post it. So use your slide decks, use your whiteboard, the discussion system. If you're going to have them, like, you know, engage with an error deeply, post to the discussion system, and use the Slack bot to get students engaged. There's a Slack bot bounty. We'll talk more about it in about a month. If you got bored students, work the clock. So things like 90 seconds, right? This level sets, how long are we going to be doing this? Are we going to be talking about this for 4 hours? Do I need to just grab a drink or what? If people are bored, it's not happening fast enough. So just work the clock. Make sure that you're really tight on your transitions and you're not talking too much. Make your lectures short. Try to talk less. And give students who are bored pod leadership a chance to be a leader. We'll talk more about that in a minute. If you're disconnected with your students, having a 1-on-4 with them is going to be really helpful, basically. I'll talk about what is a pod, and I'll review this in a bit. The last thing that's really critical is you get a lot of anxious and distressed students. Anytime there's also bonus like stress outside the classroom, they're double anxious and distressed. So for these students, you really need to hammer home the concept of psychological safety, as in it's cool to make an error, as in it's good to make an error because you can figure out the problem, and then when other people have that problem, you will have the answer. So, you know, showing students that there are troubleshooting guides and walkthroughs of labs, but really excavating the error. When somebody has a problem, say, hey, this person had a problem with the install, and it's because they didn't have this dependency. So everybody make sure you've got, you know, Git up to date or whatever it is that you've got to have, right? That, you know, I do that when I'm in the room. So when you see people have that problem in the group chat, broadcasting, maybe not the person, but just that somebody had an error so that other people can say, I had that error too. And then they don't feel like they have to hide their errors. So that's a huge part of keeping your really anxious, distressed students really engaged. Make sure that everybody's cool with errors and problems, and that the next error is a win, you know, how it is in software, right? So how do we keep that? How do we keep topics tight? This is generally how the typical classroom session looks. The first 10 minutes, like, you know, in the beginning when y'all were wandering in, we were kind of answering questions. We were kind of reviewing some stuff. There were some hanging issues. So the debrief is really just everyone's coming in and going, hey, I didn't turn in the assignment because I couldn't figure out Giphy, or, you know, whatever it was, right? So this saves some 10 minutes to deal with that kind of stuff. Then you get about 20 minutes for this overview. Really, you're just talking about the lab and the assignment. Just tell them what they need to get through the lab and the assignment. We've got a lot of videos. We've got a lot of material. You saying it out loud doesn't mean that they learned it. So try to get out of that mindset of, if I don't have it in the presentation, they won't know what to do. Just cover what's needed for the lab and the assignment and let the materials kind of do their job. Students need to be able to self-teach. So, you know, really just keeping this tight is going to be important. The reason we do this is what it's called when we do this is gradual release of control. So for the first part, so generally learning is structured like this. I demonstrate something. Just like a bit ago, I demonstrated that, you know, when we did do or don't, those were checks for understanding and keeping people engaged. So I did that. I showed it to you. I modeled doing it, right? And then we sort of talked back and forth, right? We sort of did it together. So, you know, we don't have a lab for, you know, tech fellow training, but generally it's going to be kind of that same idea. You'll model doing something, performing a compromise or making a form in the, you know, the like layout manager or whatever it is that you're doing with mobile dev, right? So you'll model it, then they'll do it kind of together, get them in a playground, get them to like create an app and just, you know, put one field on the page, things like that. Do like a micro version of the lab and then let them go, basically get them into groups and get them practicing. It's called We Do because they're doing it, but if they need your help, you're right there. So they're doing the practice together, We Do. And then You Do is where students go off and they do the assignment on their own, or if there's group work, depending on, you know, what assignment we're talking about. All sessions generally look like this. You got a short overview, the lab, you wrap up, and then they go off and do the assignment on their own. The lab and the assignment, that's your last control over them and being able to like hand them off to the capacity to finish the assignment. So that's the goal of your sessions, is get them to the point where they can do the core thing. That's sort of the process of handoff that we do. To kind of dig into that topic overview, you know, that 20 minutes that we get here, how does that really look, right? So there's a lot of text on this slide. Stay with me, stay with my pointer, and I'll kind of walk you through it. So you basically will show the topic, whatever it is for that week. We're going to, you know, SQL injection, right? And then you perform a small SQL injection. You don't have a lot of time. You're losing students. So get them practicing, get them hands-on keyboards as fast as you can. If there's any like website you could just drop and then they could just type in a little SQL injection thing to see that it works. Just having their hands on the keyboard for like 2 to 5 minutes between 10-minute stretches will keep them 1,000% more engaged. So giving them those practice sessions and then, you know, expand on the topic, talk about all the different SQL servers there are and all their different methods of SQL injection compromise, talk about, you know, get them to practice another one, right? Or use SQL map and then have them practice with SQL map, you know. And then at the end of their little practice, that's when you want to let them go to the breakout rooms, open up breakout rooms and allow them to go. And then answer questions in the room for people who have further questions. This is where you dig into things like edge cases, advanced technical topics, going down rabbit holes. But after you've already let students leave to go to breakout rooms, if they're like clear on what they're supposed to be doing. So this is generally kind of how we do stuff. So yeah, working the clock, have them, you know, execute things, pause and wait for scripted periods of time. And then get students talking to each other in breakout rooms. Make sure everybody gets through the assignment by asking pods to check each other's work. So that's generally how a session will go. Usually what we have you do is write a code along script. I'm not going to make you do this time because we've kind of got a lot of stuff going on this semester and there's just a lot of extra stuff. But I did want to show you the example of this script. I write these whenever I'm trying to nail a presentation in terms of timing. How long is it going to take, right? So what I'll do is I'll write a code along script, right? And it just kind of has like directions for the facilitator, what you do, and then how long it's going to be. And then like, you know, there's some code. That's what I'm going to write. So I predicted, okay, this code, it would take me about 1 minute to write and talk. And I can go, okay, so this is a function in JavaScript. It starts with the word function, you know, and so on. So this, writing all of these out and writing how long you think they are going to take will allow you to figure out how long your demonstration is supposed to be. So if I time it at 7 to 8 minutes with one thing where students write something, then that's essentially, you know, this first part right here, if that makes sense. So this is an example of a code along script. A lot of times what we have you do is, you know, write your own for lab 1. And it's really just to give you a chance to time out the first lab's topic and see if you can get it under 20 minutes. I recommend that you do this. It really helps me to time out my lectures. Really, it's just the idea. It doesn't have to be like in Markdown like this. You just need to know how many minutes will each phase take. How many of those phases are there? Add them up at the bottom so that you know it's going to be 7 to 8 minutes. Cool. Any questions on the presentation topic? Let's see. When is you do? You do happens basically, the lab is, you know, it's we do, and then they kind of finish it off, right? You do is when they're totally alone without you. So that's the assignment, the thing that is between sessions, basically. Any other questions on that stuff? I just want to get through pods super fast.
I'm actually going to have to drop right now because I have another meeting to attend to. But, you know, thanks for having me.
Thanks. Thanks for coming. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. So we've only got about 10 minutes left. I'm just going to try to do this quickly. Just as a thinking exercise, take a moment and think back to the best group you were ever a part of. What made it different? And I know I'm presenting and you can kind of see, like, you know, what made it different. The question I'm trying to get you to here is, why did everyone contribute, right? Because the one answer that I always get is because the best group was the best group because everybody did something and I didn't have to do everything, or everybody participated. So that's really the goal. That's how you make a good group experience, is how do you get it so that everyone is actually contributing and participating. So one thing that we do, learning is a social exercise. We have stable groups. So, you know, if one person doesn't do the work for the first week, okay, that's maybe fine. But like by week 3, if they're still not pulling their weight, it's kind of a big deal. So by having stable groups, you don't get to just shirk responsibility. You're starting and finishing together. Everybody's teaching, building ratio, and we're really actually practicing teamwork. This is how we scale. This is how CodePath really actually is robust enough to handle so many universities, is that there are literally y'all's brains on every single class. So generally, this is also how you are going to scale yourself out to your students. A pod is 4 people. The leader of the pod is one of these individual people at a time. Essentially, you'll divide your class up into groups of 4, and then you'll meet with whoever is the leader that week. So students are assigned a group. We will handle the group assignments. We will post a leadership rotation for the non-credit classes. For 4 credit, if your professor's running it, like, you got to talk to them about this. Everyone's going to lead at least one time. That's how you keep everybody participating in the group. That, and the fact that you're, you know, all in the same one. Your job will be to talk to the leads of each pod. So if you have 25, or let's say 20, that's 5 groups, right? So each week you'll talk to the 5 pod leads, and that'll be 5 students. So you only have to talk to 5 people about their pod, but then it'll be 5 new people each time. That way you get to talk to every student, but you get to talk to every student in the context of that they are leading their pod. So you get a chance, you know, you get FaceTime with everyone, but it's not so much that, like, it's totally impossible, right? So I recommend having like a leads meeting where you only talk to the pod leads. That's going to be up to you to schedule. Your pod should run stand-ups. That's where everyone checks in every day whenever they've got assignments that are out. And then pods are the ones who are going to be sorted into the group projects at the end. So the way that we do group projects is you'll just do it with the pod that you are with. There will be stuff, like if somebody gets into a bad pod and it's not a good culture or something like that, we'll figure those things out. So we'll, you know, kind of assume that pods will be stable and we'll handle any like weirdness. But yeah, this is kind of how pods work. For credit versus non-credit, we'll do non-credit. For credit, y'all are gonna have to handle that because we don't have your students. So please talk to your professor if you are a for credit class about how you're gonna handle groups in your class. They're generally great for, everyone does the, pods do the labs together. That's the point of pods. They all go to their own breakout room together. That's their same group every week, and they do the lab every week together. And the person who's in charge is responsible for reporting back that they all did the lab. If anybody, often you get an awesome pod full of like 3 awesome people or 4 awesome people that just are badasses already. And it's just the dice roll. Let them go super fast and come up with cool examples. Let them present, talk to us about them. That's what we want to have, is super group. So yeah, that's pods. I'll skip stand-ups just because we're running really low on time. And just to review that engagement strategy again, disengage students, post what you're doing, put it on the screen. Bored students, shorten up those lectures, give everyone a chance to lead. If students are bored, leading is really exciting. So promote them to lieutenant, right? Talk to them. Disconnected students, get with that pod, sit down with a group of 4 people, schedule a separate outside of class meeting with them, have a conversation about what's going on with them. You might have some people going through grief cycles. You might have people not getting along. We need you to see that because we cannot see that. There's no way for us to possibly know that that's happening without someone telling us. So we need you to understand what's going on in those groups by meeting with these people, talking with each leader, and giving leaders a chance to like raise issues in their group. You know, miscommunications, disconnections, anything static between group members, right? So that's the really super important role of the tech fellow. And then, yeah, if you've got anxious and distressed students, just make sure that they know it's okay to make a mistake and it's okay to have an error. And if they have an error, probably other people have that same error. Please show the error. Errors are like a currency. They're a positive thing to show, not a secret thing to hide, because then no one figures the thing out. So yeah, excavate those errors. I did want to just give you a little bit of a reading thing. We've kind of written up our pedagogy, and it's pretty awesome. I really love this guide that we have. So do give this a read. It's really just it's a handbook on how we work. We've got our impact objectives. This is what we want to do with students. We have our guiding principles. You can kind of see, you know, what we want you to do as a CodePath student, how we want you to interact with us, and you know, other stuff. How do we design our courses? How do we actually really measure what quality is, right? This is the best possible courses experience, NPS 80+, completion rates over 90%. That would be the best experience. So taking a look through this will really help you get an idea of how we at CodePath run the program across CodePath. So yeah. Sorry, and then we got questions. Should we allow pod choosing if someone takes the course with a friend? Yes. I believe that we will have sorry, what's the word? Survey. We're gonna have like a survey thing. Usually it's best if friends can take the course together. They support each other. It's bad if they get into a clique, like if, you know, but there's only so much you can do with that. And they're not on campus, so cliques are usually not very harmful when they're not in the physical location together. So yeah, definitely allow pod choosing if possible. Any other questions? I know that you know, we kind of covered a lot. Now is a really good time for wait time. if not, that's totally fine. Please do give me a moment more of your time and take this survey. You just attended Facilitator training session 2. So yeah, if you could let me know what you thought of this whole experience, please do. And yeah, just take 5 minutes, fill that out, and then y'all can either bounce or bombard me with questions or whatever it is that you want to talk over. So thank you. All right. See y'all.
Just a quick question. Are the assignments due next week when we have the third training?
As far as I know, yes, but I mean, if there's like a issue you're having, let us know and you can have more time or whatever.
All right, thank you.
Please.
Hey.
Yeah, question. I'm not sure if I have access to the material and the homework.
Yeah.
Basically, you should be able to go to your account and see all these, right?
So you should be able to go to courses.codepath.com and then you'll see something. I think you're doing Android, if I recall correctly. So you should be able to see something that says Android.
Okay.
You should also, I think, if you're in the Tech Fellow training course, there are cohorts here. And so if you go to Android Tech Fellow training, like this, cohorts, somewhat a little confusing. And it seems like Tech Fellow training, but then when you click on this, you'll see like things about, things about the actual assignments and things. Yeah.
So where did you start? The week 1? Or you start to week 6?
So let's see. We started these were the dates for the technical training. We're gonna do another technical training because we know that there was general chaos and people couldn't make it on the deadline. So we're gonna run some more technical training for those who haven't been able to make it. So yeah.
When?
Let's see. Hold on, let me check. Gotta open Slack. It's gonna be, I think it's gonna be starting, let's see, it's already mid-July, so. Okay, let's see. Okay, maybe it was in this other channel. Hold on, sorry. Okay, hold on. Wait. I am probably going to have to send out an email because I don't know exactly when it's going to start.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll sorry, let me just write myself a note so that I don't not get you that email.
So do you have my email?
I do not. Sorry, just 1 second for this thing to load.
Should I put it on the chat?
Yes, please do.
Quoi? On voit ça, Lise. I just sent it to you.
Thank you. Awesome. Fantastic. I will.
So we good?
Yeah, we're good. I got a to-do written down, so I'll get that to you as soon as I know.
Okay.
As soon as I can find it.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Yeah. Have a good one.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. I'll talk to y'all later. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help y'all out.